Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Nioh, Bloodborne, and many more are all categorized as a Souls-like game, a hard game, not for the faint of heart and all that sort of labeling, a game of which you will die a lot. But what is it that it makes a Souls game a Souls game? Is it all on that so-called being hard and the fact that you can simply die a lot? Demon Souls was my first ever experience with the Soul-like games. Released in 2009 for the PS3, it was a game that came out of nowhere. Even though it scored amazing reviews across the board, it wasn't hugely popular at its release. Be prepared to die was the main slogan for this game. Be aware it is hard and won't be for everyone. That, together with unsettling lore, soundtrack, and environments, immediately captivated me to play this mysterious yet badass looking game. I'm pretty good at video games, I thought, so let's do this. Well, I did die a lot, but that didn't put me off in the slightest. I was engaged from the minute that cinematic started to its last one. But what was it that it pulled me into loving it so much? Was it the difficulty, the feeling of conquering hardships, be from bosses or random enemies alike? Was it the exploration, the progression of my character, of being a nobody to a badass? Well, it's more complicated than that. Dark Souls came 2 years after Demon Souls. It was now released for all the main systems, consoles and PC, promising harder difficulty, more complex game mechanics, and an open-ended world. Demon Souls, albeit having an amazing level design, was separated by loading screens, areas cut off from each other that you accessed in the Nexus, your main hub where you could see other players and start your adventures. Dark Souls now placed you in the middle of the world. You can now choose to go anywhere, each level interconnected with each other by paths or blocked gateways that you can unlock as you progress through the game. Being fair and not handle you is probably the best description you can give to a Souls-like game, in particular the Dark Souls series and its siblings, like Bloodborne. The feeling of unknown, fairness, risk versus reward, and on you being in control are the key words I want you to keep in mind here. So let's take the Firelink Shrine as an example. From here you get many different paths and areas. You can go north, east, south. There's no clear indication. The game doesn't really tell you where to go. It's on you to figure out. It's on you to explore and face this world, even if it means being punished by wandering off to a higher level area that you weren't supposed to be. By doing this in this manner, by not having a quest log or even a map, it makes you live it. You are here, you have to decide. The options are all here, the answers are here too, but the game doesn't directly tell you. Immediately you will feel engaged and immersed in this intriguing world. If this was any other game, you would get a clear arrow, go here, and a map to guide you along the way, and a quest log telling you exactly what to do. Now, that can be engaging and immersive as well, but in the end, are you really exploring and playing this unnatural and mysterious world that you got yourself into? Or are you just following directions? Now, putting this simply like that doesn't do it justice, because it's not just one clear aspect that makes it hard or unique. It's everything that interconnects to create its own package. How many times have you said yourself when playing, or what I like to call it, the O effect? The O effect is something that few games can do. Games that are able to produce a complex and interesting level design. At first glance, Dark Souls or any other game in a series might seem quite linear. There can be multiple areas and slightly open-ended to explore, but most often you are following paths, corridors, halls. But interestingly, you might reach an area and just say, wait, I've been here before, and then you say out loud, oh, you just found a shortcut or an area that connects to an entire different area or zone, not only helping you as you play by saving you time, shortcutting to bonfires and alike, but also immersing you even more in this world, that it exists, that it connects, that it lives. It's not completely different sections, nicely cut up and scripted, giving these small little playgrounds for you to play. No, it's all one huge playground connected by what it seems to be mazes. More often than not, the levels through the series can be considered bosses on themselves. Blighttown is probably the biggest example, be the low visibility, narrow paths, tight corridors that can hide enemies, or even swamps. The game always finds ways to keep those same levels interesting and threatening, that you need to approach carefully, making that ever discovery of bonfires to be a huge relief, that you just conquered something that truly challenged you as a player. An example I can find for something simple yet subtle is a swamp in Farron Keep on Dark Souls 3, a poisonous swamp that if you stay too long on its waters, you get poisoned. However, certain areas are more dangerous than others. At first glance, it's not really visible, but once you test it and take a closer look, all the areas with pinkish leaves are deeper areas where poison takes hold quicker and slows you down, while the others are relatively safer. Traps are another good example, often hard to see but all clearly avoidable if approached in a mindful way. Subtle yet clever additions like these to the world adds the fairness to the game. It was there, the evidence was there all along, you just have to think a little bit to figure it out. You can now decide which best path to take. You can still go there if you wish, you have the freedom to do so, and maybe you will even get rewarded with loot or even use them to your advantage. The game isn't afraid to leave those decisions in your hands. Not only that, this brilliant level design is always littered with hidden areas or even hidden doorways, rewarding you with loot, making exploration worthwhile, even though dangerous from all the enemies or even the level itself trying to kill you. You want to explore every nook and cranny, as maybe there will be an awesome badass weapon, useful items, or a hidden pathway leading to a bonfire. Or hell, even a hidden area containing an optional boss. You never know what you might encounter. That feeling of risk versus reward keeps us engaged, keeps us on our toes and invested in what we're doing. And that is not even mentioning the beautiful yet haunting art style of the series, be huge halls, castles, dark, frightening areas, forests, swamps, villages, making it feel fresh on both a visual standpoint and on a gameplay one at every turn. So that's the world and level design. It's mysterious, dangerous, but rewarding. It has character and it can be hauntingly beautiful. But there's something that intertwines with this description of the world perfectly: the lore. You can go through any of the games in the series and be completely clueless to why anything is happening. And why? Well, because like the level design and the way the game progresses, it isn't spoon-fed to you. If you want to know something, it's also new to do so. Be talking to characters, reading items, interpreting the world by what is presented to you visually. Achieving these levels of storytelling in just purely being able to read the world and have a story to tell is something that not many games can achieve, but one that the Souls games are masters of. Even when there's written dialogue, it continues to be obscure and indirect. It is again on you to make up the story, to interpret it the way you understand it, no matter which medium it wishes to deliver it. Like the level design and overall aesthetic, it keeps with the theme of being haunting, mysterious, and awfully bleak. Not to say that every game should follow this method of storytelling, but this way of telling a story fits perfectly with the overall Souls-like game design. For the majority of the game, outside of cutscenes, the game is also dead silent. It's just you and the world and its troubling inhabitants. That's not just by chance, it's deliberate. By not having music whatsoever, it adds to that feel of you being alone in this world, to that feeling that is on you and you alone as you play, to tackle this world in any way that you wish, just like it is with the storyline or lore, and just like it is with the level design and progression. And when that music kicks in, well, you know you in for some trouble. It gets your blood pumping, your heart racing, and you in for something that you most likely weren't prepared for: the combat. In Dark Souls, the combat is what's firstly mentioned in the series. It is the hard part. It can be complex, it is precise, it's fluid, it's challenging, punishing, and it is responsive. Depending on what weapon you choose to go for, it feels like something else entirely. Be a ultra great sword or axe or mace, to a simple long sword or even spells. Unlike many action games, Demon's Souls brought an extremely precise combat system based on stamina, which can be seen as hard, and well, it is, but also because it's completely based on your skill. Enemy attacks are clear and threatening. It is on you to decide when to click that right button to attack or that left button to block and to roll or parry, or even to use items and your very limited heals. If you die, it's often some mistake you made, not some weird RNG or script, but on you. I like to describe Dark Souls combat as a surgical type of combat. Right moves and right thinking gets you victories. Being greedy and miscalculating them gets you dead. All the tools are given to you, it's just up to you on how and if you choose to use them, and in turn make a fight easier or harder. Fairness. You can even get through the entire game without being hit once. All comes down to your skill, the use of your stamina, and when you learn to properly plan your moves, and mostly rolling. Having that philosophy in mind for the game's combat style makes it ever more engaging and well fun. Knowing and learning each and every pattern, animation of attacks from enemies, their weaknesses, most prominently on bosses, is the most daunting but is also one of the most entertaining side of the Souls game. Like the level design, it can also trigger that oh moment when you figure out some weakness that you weren't aware, or found out a boss's tail or member can be cut off for an easier encounter or for better loot. In the average game, weaknesses like these would be immediately exposed and highlighted in such a way even your grandma could see it, but here it's on you to figure out and hard tested. Defeating those bosses is our main goal in the end. That may come through many deaths and frustration, but when you finally defeat it, or when that HP slowly reaches its end as you whack away at the boss, that adrenaline and satisfaction, there's no feeling like it. Like the level design, this is not even mentioning the amazing visual look of the bosses, fitting perfectly with their mechanics, often huge, intimidating, inducing this feeling of dread even before it struck a single blow at you. As for the overall character progression can be somewhat complex, and is where the RPG part of the game comes in. Having the soul system, the currency required to level, connected with your deaths, losing it all sometimes can physically hurt, but in the process it makes every death matter, makes you fear it, makes you want to get better. Even though a class system can be found here, these serve as a simple template. From there on out, you can do whatever you want with your character. The variety of stats and effects can be indeed intimidating for newcomers, but a tremendous amount of depth can be found here, with unique stats that inherently become game mechanics like weight loads, changing your character roll speed depending on your gear weight. I often saw myself constantly thinking about my character, what armor should I use, if any, what stats should I upgrade with and build my character upon, what type of materials should I upgrade my weapon with and for what encounter. You care for your character so you can smash all those tough enemies and bosses easier, and you can do so in any build that you so wish. Making you care and have such freedom for your character progression makes it fun. The feeling of hardship can be found anywhere in the game, on its level design and progression, overall mechanics, but most prominently found on its combat. Like we discussed, the fighting is precise. It isn't about smashing buttons, it's knowing when to attack, when to defend. It's about timing, planning your moves, learning fights and patterns of enemies in order to achieve victory. Dark Souls came during a time which has stretched till today, where games started to handheld you more, clearly telling you what to do, with simpler combat styles and level designs. But it's clear that we as players and as humans crave for that challenge. The feeling that you get of almost ecstasy after defeating a boss or progressed through a hard level that you've been smashing your head in for hours is nothing like it. The feeling of satisfaction that you earned it, that you worked hard for it and were rewarded accordingly. Haven't you had a boss fight that you defeated only because you summoned a phantom or googled some weakness and your victory was just soured? You progressed, sure, but was far from when you defeat some boss fair and square, when you earned that victory. That translates not only in that feeling of satisfaction, but also fun. All those feelings later on become memories. Memories that you will hold on for years, that make you think back to how amazing the game was to you, be that boss fight that you remember so vividly, or that bitch of an enemy, or that level that you learned every corner of, death after death, without a map or any sort of tool to guide you besides your eyes and your mind. You can find this not only on Souls games but on others, in particular the older games from the 80s, 90s, very simplistic games that were often hard but you kept playing them till you achieved victory. Or many games in the PS1 or PS2 era also share many of the features the Souls game have. Hard-hitting enemies, little amount of checkpoints, hard bosses, lack of guiding and helping tools. Gameplay wasn't as fair nor as precise due to its age, but many of the things we call hard in Dark Souls used to be what was considered to be normal gameplay. Games have evolved in amazing ways, be technological or storytelling ways, and we have many amazing games today sharing a lot of these rewarding features, but one can see that on a general overview, that rewarding, long-lasting satisfaction feeling that then turns into a memory has been lessened. This is an aspect that we can not only apply in games, but to many other parts of our real lives. All in all, not all Soul-like games can produce this experience that can touch to the very core of being human, and not all games should be like this, but From Software and all its developers are the masters of this art. Not to say that the other games in the genre are bad, some do the combat equally as engaging, others do the lore right, others might do the level design, but none other can connect all these systems, features and mechanics in such a neat little package. So in the end, let yourself be swallowed up by this world, explore it, conquer it, make yourself a badass. After all, that's what games are all about.